All right, hello everybody. Good evening. Welcome to Monster Monday pre-show. This is DM Gallibond. I want to let you know we're trying out a new music provider this month. I heard about this new provider called Prestream Hits from one of the Discord servers that I belong to. Talked to the owner of Prestream Hits and looked at their selection on Apple Music and some of the other big platforms, streaming platforms. They're a brand new service, but similar to what we've been using. They offer copyright-free music for streamers, by streamers, and it is music that you can use in your YouTube videos, your YouTube live streams, your Twitch streams, and you won't get any copyright strikes. So you can find out more about their offerings over at pipedreamhits.com. And once again, they are supplying the music for this evening. And then, as always, go check out Mo over at the tabletopbellhop.com. Mo is the OG when it comes to all things tabletop games. Party games, board games, card games, games for kids, games for adults, games for all ages in between. If it can be played on a tabletop, Mo has got information about it, ways to buy it, all of the kind of minutia details about the history of the games, the manufacturers, the industry, analysis, news, reviews, and an entire galaxy of creators who are creating content from podcasts to live streams to videos about everything from how to play the game to actual game sessions to theory crafting and rules analysis of all of these games. That is over at the tabletopbellhop.com. And in just a little less than a minute, we are going to get started with our session tonight, and tonight's Monster Monday is about the Rakshasa. The Rakshasa. And so we will find out a little bit more about that and be thinking of your questions as we get towards the end of the session. Throw your questions in the chat and we'll try to answer them as we get towards the end of the show. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and bring the music down a little bit. Okay. And welcome everybody to Monster Monday. I am DM Gallibond, and this is Monster Monday for August 2nd, 2021. And tonight, up on Monster Monday, we are going to be looking at the Rakshasa. The Rakshasa? What is that? Well, that is actually a monster that comes to D&D out of the mythology of the subcontinent of India. It is one of the few monsters that comes out of that mythology into D&D, and it is one of the most interesting monsters that you may have never faced or you may have never used in D&D. So tonight we're going to talk about the Rakshasa and kind of how you can use that, what's cool about it, how it's evolved over the editions, and if you have the misfortune to face it in combat, what you're in for. All right, so here we go. The Rakshasa. This is an image of the Rakshasa from the 2nd edition Monstrous Manual. And while Rakshasas appeared initially in AD&D 1st edition, they did not get a description in the text of the monster until 2nd edition. So what we learn about them is that Rakshasas stand 6 to 7 feet tall and weigh 250 to 300 pounds. They have no uniform appearance but appear as humanoid creatures with the bodily features of various beasts. most commonly tigers and apes. Now, I'm going to ask you, look for on any of the ape depictions in any of the artwork that we're going to show you tonight. Okay, hands whose palms curve backwards away from the body seem to be common. Rakshasas of the highest standing sometimes have several heads, and all Rakshasas wear human clothing of the highest quality. So that is what we learn from second edition. Hey, Skyland, glad you could join us tonight. So from third edition, the description of the Rakshasa is this being looks like a humanoid tiger, garbed in expensive clothes. The body seems mostly human except for a luxurious coat of tiger's fur and its tiger head. And then in fourth edition, we learn a Rakshasa has the head of a feline predator, usually a tiger, as well as a luxurious coat of fur and clawed hands. It is clothed in fine attire and expensive jewelry. A closer look at a Rakshasa reveals that the palms of its hands are where the backs of the hands should be on a human, a subtle feature that adds to the creature's unsettling appearance. So imagine then if a Rakshasa is holding its hands down by its legs in a natural position. Instead of the palms being facing the legs, the palms will be facing outwards, and the backs of the hands are facing the legs. That's just kind of a weird sort of backward thing with this Rakshasa, and a little clue that might be something a little bit different. Okay, Rakshasa Lore. Now, this is a picture of the Rakshasa from 5th edition D&D. So, and what we learn looking at the most recent edition, which is 5th edition, is that Rakshasas are evil spirits in mortal flesh. Rakshasas originated long ago in the 9 hells, when powerful devils created a dark ritual to free their essence from their fiendish bodies in order to escape the lower planes. A Rakshasa enters the material plane to feed its appetite for humanoid flesh and evil schemes. It selects its prey with care, taking pains to keep its presence in the world a secret. And then from 4th edition, we learn Rakshasas often conceal their true appearance, using illusion magic to adopt whatever disguises serve them best. They typically masquerade as nobles or wealthy merchants, lying and manipulating other creatures into doing their bidding. Rakshasas prefer to mislead would-be adversaries instead of fighting them, but if combat becomes necessary, Rakshasas are fierce and ruthless. And then from 3rd edition we learn, a Rakshasa can assume any humanoid form, or revert to its own form as a standard action. In humanoid form, a Rakshasa loses its claw and bite attacks, although it often equips itself with weapons and armor instead. And we're going to learn, looking at 5th edition, why those claw attacks especially are really, really bad news for anybody that gets struck by them. Okay, well, we've kind of given it away with the lore here, and this is a picture of the Rakshasa from the 3rd edition Monster Manual. The type of creature that the Rakshasa is, it's a fiend. Yes, it is created, born, carved, ritually manipulated, whatever, manifested. That was the word I was looking for. Ritually manifested from a devil, which is a lawful evil fiend. So fiends are creatures of wickedness that are native to the lower planes. Few are the servants of deities, but many more labor under the leadership of archdevils and demon princes. Evil priests and mages sometimes summon fiends to the material world to do their bidding. If an evil celestial is a rarity, a good fiend is almost inconceivable. Almost inconceivable! Fiends include demons, devils, hellhounds, rakshasas, and yugalas. Okay, now we are going to not look at the mechanical features of purple worms. Instead, we are going to look at the mechanical features of Rakshasa. So, let's take a look at that. They first appear, as I said, in AD&D First Edition, and yeah, hey, Michael. Hey, Oyo. Purple Rakshasas. Yes, they could be purple. All right, so the Rakshasa in uh, in First Edition, notice its armor class. Its armor class is -4. And this was back in a day when the lower the armor class, the harder it was to hit. So something that had a -4 armor class was almost impossible to hit. Has 7 hit dice, has 3 attacks with its claws and its bite, and some special abilities. Now, what I love in First Edition D&D is that, there's always supposed to be this cosmology, and D&D is supposed to take place in these far-flung areas. So what is the first thing it says about the Rakshasa right off the bat? Known first in India, these evil spirits encased in flesh are spreading. So it's like, wait, what a minute, India? I'm in Greyhawk City. Where is this India of which you speak? Uh, They're fond of a diet of human meat, and as masters of illusion, they can easily gain this end. Rakshasas are able to employ ESP and then create the illusion of what those who have encountered them deem friendly. They can withhold attack until their prey can be taken off guard. Although capable of using both magic user spells up to 3rd level and cleric spells 1st level, they are not affected by any spells below 8th level. Rakshasas cannot be harmed by non-magical weapons, and magical weapons below +3 do 1/2 damage. But hits by a crossbow bolt blessed by a cleric will kill them. If more than one Rakshasa is encountered in its lair, the group will be a male and 1 or more females. So, yeah, they are really hard to hit, almost impervious to magic, but they have a weakness to blessed crossbow bolts. Interesting. Okay, and that's really all we learn about them in First Edition. So now in Second Edition, we get 2 different variants on the Rakshasa. We get the Rakshasa and the Greater Rakshasa. And we have very similar armor class, -4 for the Rakshasa, -5 for the Greater Rakshasa. The hit dice are 7 hit dice for the regular, 8 + 16 hit dice for the Greater. The Greater has a little bit better or a little bit more damaging attacks. And now you notice in Second Edition, you require now only a +1 or better magical weapon to hit the regular. You require a +2 or better magical weapon to hit the Greater Rakshasa. And then the morale, this was back when morale was still a thing. They were champion morale, so they would keep fighting on a 15 to 16 morale check on a d20. Fanatic, they would keep fighting all the way up to a 17 or 18. And then their social structures. So depending on what social structure they have, you would get a higher XP value. So they savor human flesh and use illusions to get it. A limited form of ESP, so they can disguise themselves as someone the victim trusts, and they lure the victim in and strike when that victim is most unprepared. They must drop the illusion when it attacks. They can have magical abilities up to the following limits: 4 first level wizard spells, 2 second, 3 third, and 3 first-level priest spells. And then Rakshasas are immune to all spells lower than 8th level. Alright, they're bound by rigid castes. Each Rakshasa is born in a particular role in life and cannot advance. Females are fit to be consorts, honored only for their faithfulness and the fighting ability of their children. And Rakshasas wage war on humanity constantly, not only to feed themselves, because they believe that battle is the only way to gain honor. And Rakshasas' life cycle or life varies in cycles of wild self-indulgence in times of prosperity, and strict fasting and sacrifice in times of trouble, or before battle. And as spirits, Rakshasas are virtually immortal. They produce a new generation every century to replace the Rakshasas that have been slain in battle. And Rooks, about all 15 Rakshasas are greater Rakshasas or Rooks, which are knights. These warriors are guardians of a Rakshasa community. The Rajas, about 15% of the Rooks are Rajas or lords. Each Raja is the leader or patriarch of his local clan. And these rulers of Rakshasadom have the same abilities as a Rook, but also have spell casting abilities of both a 6th level priest and an 8th level wizard, casting spells at 11th level of ability. And then the Maharajas, about 5% of the Rajas are dukes, and they have the same ability as a Rook, but 13 plus 39 hit dice, and the spell casting abilities of a 13th level wizard and 9th level priest. And they reside on the outer planes where they rule island communities of hundreds of Rakshasas and serve as minions to even greater powers. So we learn a little bit more about them in 2nd edition. Now in 3rd edition, this is where things like armor class change around so that the higher the armor class, the harder they are to hit. And we see they're still 7d8 hit dice, plus 21, so moderate hit dice. The let's see, the armor class is 21, so it's pretty difficult to hit them. Their full attack is 2 claws and a bite. Special attacks are detect thoughts and spells. Special abilities, change shape, damage reduction, 15, good and piercing. Now what this means is it means that if you are good and you are using a piercing weapon, you ignore the damage reduction. Otherwise, any damage you deal to it, you just take 15 off the top, and if you hit it for less than 15 damage, it doesn't take any damage at all. Spell resistance 27. That means that if you cast any spells at it, you have to do at least 28 points of spell damage to do any damage to it. All right, so they are pretty resistant to a lot of different things. Some say Rakshasas are the very embodiment of evil, and few beings are more malevolent. And in close combat, which a Rakshasa disdains as ignoble, it employs its sharp claws and powerful bite. Whenever possible, it uses other abilities to make such encounters unnecessary. Now, it can continually use detect thoughts, and it can suppress or resume this ability as a free action. And here is a typical spell load. Sorcerer spells, 6 cantrips, 7 first level, 7 second level, 5 third level, and then the types of things that it would have. Most of these are illusion or enchantment or charm. Some of them are direct damage or protection spells. And then it can change shape, consume any humanoid form, or revert to its own form. And it remains in one form until it chooses to assume a new one. Now, also one of the cool things in 3rd edition is that just about every monster, there are some exceptions, but just about every monster that has some modicum of intelligence and or spellcasting ability, they put in a template of how you could turn that monster into a player character. So the first thing to notice is that a Rakshasa begins with 7 levels of Outsider, which provides 78 hit dice. So you're not going to start a first level campaign and have a Rakshasa as a character. That's just completely out. If your player wants to play a Rakshasa, okay, fine. You're going to play something else until the campaign gets to 8th level, and then you're going to create a first level Rakshasa. And then you're going to level that up after, from there on. So that's the way it's going to be. But that's what you'd have to do if you're going to do that. And that's just to compensate for the fact that the Rakshasa has all of these natural abilities that you have to set its character level much higher than other characters that are not Rakshasa. And then, of course, there are a lot of other monsters that have similar type of boosted character levels as well. All right, now in 4th edition, we are going to take a look at this, and we get 4 different kinds of Rakshasa in 4th edition. And, they are malevolent, deceptive humanoids with a taste for luxury. And notice that the creature type in 4th edition is humanoid. We have had them associated as fiends pretty much from the beginning. But now in 4th edition, they change that up a little bit, and they throw it as a humanoid. The weakest of the Rakshasa is a level 15 soldier. So it has 142 hit points and an armor class of 31. Fights with a longsword, deals claw damage, has a Tiger Pounce ability, and a Deceptive Veil ability. And then it fights with its longsword, marking foes so it can use its Tiger Pounce on subsequent rounds. Then the Rakshasa Archer is also a level 15 artillery. It has an armor class of 28, 110 hit points, and it fights with a longbow. It can do a double attack. It can do Ghost Arrow, which is a recharging attack, which is a necrotic weapon, and it deals 1d10 plus 5 necrotic damage, and the target cannot spend healing surges, which is the 4th edition mechanic of recovering hit points, until they save out of that condition. So it can disguise itself to appear as any medium humanoid. Then we have the Rakshasa Assassin. So the Rakshasa Assassin is a level 17 skirmisher, and it has 160 hit points, armor class of 31. It fights with a short sword, can do a double attack, Phantom Distraction, and it's can target or it can daze a target until the end of the Rakshasa Assassin's next turn. And combat advantage, it can deal an extra 2d6 damage anytime it has combat advantage. That's kind of like the Rogue Sneak Attack ability in 5th edition. Can disguise itself to appear as any medium humanoid, and it has shadow form. So if it moves at least 10 feet, it gains the phasing quality until the end of its turn. And then we have the Rakshasa Noble. The Rakshasa Noble is an armor class 33, level 19 controller, 178 hit points. It can do this Mind Twist ability, which deals 3d6 plus 7 psychic damage and dazes the target until they save out of it. Phantom Lure, it slides a target 5 squares. So that means it can pull a target towards it or push a target away or move it anywhere on the battlefield. You know, maybe push it over towards one of its allies so it can be hit better. It has a fear attack, has that same deceptive veil, and then has Phantom Image. A creature that attacks the Rakshasas' AC or reflex defense must roll twice and use the lower attack roll result. And if either result is a critical hit, use that result instead. So then let's see. Yes, we do have one more. The Rakshasa Dread Knight. This is the alpha among the Rakshasa. Level 24 soldier, has an aura of doom. Enemies in the aura regain half the normal amount of hit points when they spend a healing surge. It's a level 24 soldier, armor class 40, 220 hit points, makes 2 longsword attacks or a claw attack, and it can do a triple attack, so it makes 3 melee basic attacks. Rakshasa Dread Knight can disguise itself to appear as any medium humanoid, and then the Knight's move. Rakshasa Dread Knight can fly up to 6 squares, must land at the end of this move or else it crashes. So at least you got that going for you. It can't sustain flight from one round to the next. It has to land at the end of every round. Okay, now we go to 5th edition. And there's an interesting little tidbit here. So, we already talked about how it's evil spirits and mortal flesh. But take a look at this evil reborn. For a Rakshasa, death on the material plane means an agonizing and torturous return to the 9 hells, where its essence remains trapped until its body reforms, a process that can take months or years. When the Rakshasa is reborn, it has all the memories and knowledge of its former life, and it seeks retribution against the one who slew it. If that target has somehow slipped through its grasp, the Rakshasa might punish its killer's family, friends, or descendants. And like devils, Rakshasas killed in the 9 hells are forever destroyed. So, if you encounter a Rakshasa on the natural world, on the material plane, you know it's going to eventually be coming after you. So, probably better to somehow be able to take it back to the 9 hells and kill it there, and then try to get out of Dodge, because if you kill it in the 9 hells, you'll destroy it completely, and it won't ever be able to come back after you. However, of course, getting into the 9 hells in order to do that, and then getting back out, well, that's a whole other kettle of fish that you can deal with. But let's take a look at what makes these monsters so fun in 5th edition. It has one of the things that's been brought forward all the way from the very beginning is limited magic immunity. So it can't be affected or detected by spells of 6th level or lower unless it wishes to be. And then it has advantage on saving throws against all other spells and magical effects. So even if you have a spellcaster that can cast 7th level of spells, it gets advantage on its saving throws against those. And then look at its spell load. Look at the way it's all geared around kind of illusions and enchantment and a little bit of defensive, but it's not really a lot of direct damage stuff that it has on its spells. So you have Detect Thoughts, Disguise Self, Mage Hand, Minor Illusion, Charm Person, Detect Magic, Invisibility, Major Image, and Suggestion. and then dominate person, fly, plane shift, and true seeing. So it can use that suggestion 3 times a day. And as players in my Thursday night game have learned, suggestion is a really powerful spell. I mean, it's like all you need is an opponent that doesn't have the greatest wisdom, and you can pretty much get it to do about what you want if you have a high spell save DC on your spell casting. So that's a really good spell. Now, in 5th edition, we have lost the bite attack from the Rakshasa, but the claw attack is something. It has a poison pill hidden in it, so it deals only 2d6 plus 2 slashing damage, and the target is cursed if it's a creature. Okay, there's not a saving throw against the curse. It's just a curse that lands on them when you get clawed by this thing. The magical curse takes effect whenever the target takes a short or long rest, filling the target's thoughts with horrible images and dreams. The cursed target gains no benefit from finishing a short or long rest. So this curse lasts until it is lifted by a remove curse spell or similar magic. So, no benefits from a short rest. You can't use hit dice to regain hit points. You can't recover any abilities that recharge on a short rest. You don't get any kind of benefits at all from doing a short rest. A long rest, you don't recover any hit dice. You can't regain any hit points. And because you don't gain the benefit of a long rest, you suffer a level of exhaustion for every time you miss a long rest. So this is a curse that can quite literally, without doing enough damage to kill a character, can kill a character because of the effects of this curse accumulated over the course of less than a 10-day. Because in 5e, you get to level 6 of exhaustion, you are done. Your character's dead, and there's no bringing them back. So you better have access to a remove curse if you deal with a Rakshasa. Now, it is a CR13 monster, so the likelihood is that by the time you are a party that is capable of facing CR13 monsters, probably you have access to a remove curse either from someone in your party or someone that your party has befriended somewhere along the way. So you probably have access to that, but you need to be aware that that is a consequence of this. So that's the mechanics of the Rakshasa. Let's go back and let's take a look at some of the other things that we can do with the Rakshasa. All right, here's the Rakshasa Assassin from 4th edition. Again, whenever I do these, I try to think about how can we create a hard encounter for a party of 5 PCs of a certain level. When your party gets to 8th level, a single Rakshasa against an 8th level party, that's a hard encounter, but it's also a hard encounter for a 9th or 10th level party. Now at level 11, it becomes a medium encounter and also a medium encounter at 12th level. If you want to turn that 12th level encounter into a hard encounter, you can add 1 Ammonite, which is another type of fiend, to the encounter. And then if the party is level 15, 16, or 17, it's an easy encounter. If you want to make it a hard encounter for a level 17 party, you just add 1 more Rakshasa to the battlefield, and that will turn it into a hard encounter. So what if you're a player in a party, and your DM throws one of these Rakshasas at you. So, what are some tactics you can use? Well, number one, protect your mind and don't trust your eyes. So, Rakshasas are master of disguise and enchantment magic. They can assume the form of any humanoid they choose, and they can cast illusions and enchantment spells like suggestion and dominate person. So, pay attention to details. The Rakshasa has a telltale giveaway of their fiendish nature. The backs of their hands are where the palms should be, and vice versa. And then finally, watch those claws. Whoops. The claws of Rakshasa will inflict painful cuts, but they can also leave a lasting curse that prevents a PC from benefiting from short or long rest. So that's the real danger if you are facing a Rakshasa in a combat. Now, let's go behind the DM screen. And how might you use a Rakshasa as a DM? One of the things that first comes to mind when I think of these Rakshasa and the way they disguise themselves in society, this is a perfect kind of recurring villain. So take its spellcasting and shape-changing capabilities. A Rakshasa is a perfect choice for a recurring villain, perhaps even one that is not revealed as a villain for some time in the campaign. So you could allow the Rakshasa to be a complicated villain in your campaign. If we go outside of D&D into pop culture, think about the character of Michael Corleone from the Godfather film series. So the Rakshasa, it could be disguised as a wealthy and influential member of society, and it could even start off as a patron of a good party. And it might manipulate and use that good party to eliminate competing evildoers within a certain area in order for it to consolidate power within that area. So maybe a Rakshasa is a merchant prince in a large city. And, maybe it recruits the PCs because, oh, there's all these attacks on these caravans. It's horrible. And, I've had a couple of caravan drivers tell me that they think that there's this, crooked merchant over on the west side of town that might be part of that. You guys are good at sneaking around. Could you sneak around and check and see if maybe that is? And maybe, in fact, that crooked merchant is the one behind those caravan attacks. So the players and the PCs can become heroes by dealing with that and getting rid of that crooked merchant. But what they've also done is they've also eliminated a competitor for their patron. And then their patron may have another type of job for them to do that will go after another sort of evildoer, which is yet a competitor, which allows the Rakshasa to gather more and more power and become a greater crime lord in this area. And it may not be until the party gets to 6th, 7th, 8th level that they start suspecting, wait a minute. There's something fishy about this guy that we've been working for all along. And that may be when they find out, oh crap, we've been working for the bad guy all along. That's a great way of using a Rakshasa in a campaign. All right. So where could you place a Rakshasa? Like we said when we were looking at the analysis of using it in encounters, it's not appropriate for a party below 8th level to face a Rakshasa in combat. If you choose to set it up as a recurring villain or an ally turned villain, as we mentioned in the previous slide, you can introduce the Rakshasa from the beginning of the game. And with Rakshasa having such a command of spellcasting and curses, they remain a serious threat to parties even once they get into tier 4. So this can be a long running villain. Maybe eventually the party becomes high enough level that they drive the Rakshasa out of the settlement where they first encountered him, and he flees and escapes. But that doesn't mean that sometime down the road he's not going to set up in another city, and then he might have another party that starts coming after the people that used to work for him. And then eventually they find out, oh, hey, wait, this is our old boss that keeps sending these people after us. We got to go deal with him. And so that can continue to have it be an escalating villain that you get to see over and over and over again throughout the campaign. If you run a campaign that includes a lot of political intrigue or features organized criminal syndicates, putting a Rakshasa in a position of importance within the city or kingdom where the campaign takes place can sow a lot of intrigue and misdirection into the villain behind whatever trouble is driving the PCs to more and more dangerous missions as they raise levels. So I really like those kinds of things where the PCs are allowed to gain trust in an NPC and eventually put so much trust in there, and they're certain of their moral compass and their rightness, and then you just sort of pull back the curtain and reveal, hey, guess what, guys, you've been working for the bad guy all along. Which means that people used to think you're heroes. Now they know you've been working for the bad guy. Oh, your reputations are all mud. And now, what are you guys going to do about it as a campaign or as an adventuring party? Are you going to turn your backs on everybody, or are you going to try to rehabilitate your image? That can be a whole nother interesting way of launching a completely new avenue for the campaign. All right, so reskinning the monster. Artwork for the Rakshasa. Remember I asked you to look for any kind of ape variants of the Rakshasa? You haven't found any, have you? No. There aren't any in any of the official artwork. So while they say that they can be any kind of beast, most commonly ape-like or feline, all of the artwork throughout their appearance universally depicts them as feline humanoids, and more often than that, as tigers. However, early descriptions say they can appear as other types of humanoid animal combinations. So you can decide that in your game, you're going to actually have those other kinds of Rakshasas. Ape humanoids, boar humanoids, elk humanoids, whatever your imagination wants to have. You just simply take the stat block of the Rakshasa and change it around. And if it's a creature, let's say, like an elk, well, maybe it doesn't have claws, but maybe its antlers are the attacks that deal the damage that will cause the curse that the Rakshasas have. So whatever, you can do all kinds of different things like that. Okay. But yeah, Amish, that's another possibility. A Rakshasa could convince the good guys that he is a necessary evil that keeps all the other evils away. That is sort of a moral quandary that you can throw your players into. Hey, I'm the devil, you know. You know all about me. If you destroy me, you don't know what kind of evil is going to crawl out of the woodwork to take the vacuum of all the power that I hold? Right now, we have a good working relationship. I can keep my little empire over here, and you can go and do all your good over there. Why don't we just agree to let well enough alone? Do you really want to risk what might be worse than me as your adversary? Think about it. So, yeah. Well, and Amish mentions he has some code. Well, if they're devils, devils are lawful evil. So lawful right there means there is going to be a strict code. If you could get the Rakshasa into an agreement, like a binding contract, and it agrees to the terms of that contract, then if you create that contract carefully enough, so there's not loopholes that the Rakshasa can get out of and go around, then you pretty much know what the Rakshasa is going to do, and pretty much can limit what it will do. So that's a very good point. Okay, so do we have any other questions about the Rakshasa? Okay, looking at the chat, I don't see any right now. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go into the wrap up, and then I'm going to come back and check to see if there are other questions. So I've been DM Gallibond. This has been Monster Monday. We talk about the Rakshasa tonight and how you can use that in your games and the history of it in the game of D&D. I have 3 other streams that I do every week. On Thursday nights at 8 p.m. On Sunday afternoons at 2 p.m. I run the Walker of Waterdeep, which is a 5th edition planeswalking campaign where we mix the lore between 5e D&D and Magic the Gathering. Then on Thursday night at 8 p.m., we do the Sword Coast Chronicles. That's also a 5th edition D&D game, but in that game, we weave our story between the plots of the various published 5th edition campaigns from Wizards of the Coast. And then on Saturday night, we play 2nd edition Saturday Night Greyhawk. And right now, we are going through the Temple of Elemental Evil adventure. So that is 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Now, all of those streams are live simulcast on Twitch and YouTube. All the archives are over on YouTube so that you can look at those. And we have a Patreon that allows us to kind of, with more support, we can go ahead and we can wind up getting more content that we can create and do. And we've got a couple of other things that we are planning between now and the next quarter. Next month is September, so look for some special things happening for September. And we will be rolling out a couple of new features in August as well. All right, everyone. Let me double check and see if there are additional questions. I don't see any additional questions right now. So, what I am going to do is I am going to go ahead and bring the music back up a little bit. And I am going to wish you all, or thank you all for coming out this week. Hope that you all have a wonderful, wonderful week coming up. And as always, I'm going to remind you to watch out for the monsters under the bed. Good night, everybody.